There's death, there's destruction.
Global news impacts us.
We have to change the way we live.
This is why we need independent media.
I want to point out some things that have been going on. We've had massive set of disasters recently, including active shooters, but also unprecedented flooding, for example, that happened near Yellowstone. And a bunch of tourists and residents actually got flooded. Got flooded and trapped. So it's near Yellowstone National Park. We also have, now after that happened, the waters started heading down to Montana's largest city. So now Montana, one of their cities there, is in Billings, Montana, is looking at devastating floods. We've also had in Odessa, Texas, they've been having a massive heat wave with temperatures over 100. Now, Texas is reasonably used to that. The problem was that in Odessa, Texas, their water went out.
Oh, no.
And I was actually reading, folks, they have about 165,000 homes and businesses lost water pressure or went completely dry after a water main broke. And so people were saying,
impressive water main.
Yeah, and it was, the stories that I was hearing on this, people woke up and were going about their morning business, like using the bathroom, and then they can't flush.
Yeah.
In 100-degree heat.
Ew.
Yeah. But, you have 100-degree heat and no water for people. And that people, apparently all the hotels in the area were booked up because people who could afford it were going to hotels.
Yeah.
Think about all the people who can't manage to get to a hotel. So it kind of just shows that that emergencies and disasters, I like to say, they don't wait patiently in line to happen. They all will happen at once.
Yeah.
And we still have a global health emergency at this point. So it's all happening at once. So I wanted to talk a little bit about what I do. All of this information is in the Civically Minded newsletter. Yes, you can subscribe to it. It will also serve as a reminder to tune into the shows on Thursdays, but it has all the information and links in here for you. So as I like to point out, preparedness means acting right now. It means you're preparing, not acting at the moment. One of the reasons why you want to do that, you're making things a lot easier for yourself. You'll have access to things that like food and water, and information that you would not normally have. You won't have if you don't prepare. So you've got stuff in place for you and your family. You're in a much better position. I like to tell folks before, in the early 2020, I had toilet paper. I had cleaning supplies. I had N95 masks. I had gloves. I had all these things because of my work with my interest in disaster preparedness. I was able to help out myself, able to help out my landlord, my fellow tenants, and some friends. It was a good situation for all of us, and it was less of an emergency.
Yeah.
Because of that. And that was really kind of important. But the other thing is that, when you're prepared, you're not taking up emergency resources that are being provided. Other folks who are less fortunate than you can take advantage of that. The other thing is, in any kind of a situation like this, your mind is not working the way it normally does. So when you're in a panic, like when things are just going bad, your mind is going to focus very differently.
Yes, it definitely does.
And you may not think about things. I remember once, I knew I had an emergency radio someplace in my home. Tornado siren goes off or whatever it was, a storm alert came in, and I couldn't remember where I put it. And so I'm running around, just trying to make sure that I have my supplies handy, and I realized I had to keep my supplies organized in a certain place so that when something happens, I can run to that place and get everything I need. I can get a flashlight. Mm-hmm. I can get a lantern, which I have.
Right.
That sort of thing. So I learned I had to do that. So I want to talk also a little bit about common summer emergencies and disasters. The first is obviously excessive heat, which we've been talking about because we've been experiencing it here in Chicago. Make sure you know the symptoms of heat stroke, and there's a link in there. Heat stroke does not always look the way people think it's going to look. When a person is in heat distress, they may be feeling, but they're sweating and they're complaining and that sort of thing. When people have heat stroke, and this one of the problems is that heat stroke affects a person's mind.
Yeah.
So they may think they're okay, and they're not. And I've talked to people who have had heat stroke who have said, oh yeah, I thought I was just fine. Fortunately, other people around them knew what was happening. What can happen is they might be actually cool to the touch, maybe a little clammy, but they may not be looking like they're suffering from heat. That's actually that's the danger zone. So it's very important to be aware of the symptoms of heat stroke and to understand that you're responsible for yourself when you're out in the heat and that you may not know that you have heat stroke. So it's important to take care of yourself, be drinking water.
We've been telling people to hydrate at work.
Hydrate! Also to understand wet bulb conditions. I've talked about that a lot on this show, but that's something that's been on the increase worldwide, and that is when the heat and the humidity are both so high that your body's natural cooling process is short-circuited. So what happens is it's so humid that when you perspire, which is the way your body cools itself down, it perspires. Perspiration has no place to evaporate to. It cannot evaporate. And with the wet bulb conditions, even young, fit, healthy people can drop dead because you don't acclimate to that. You get so hot, it kills you. Jeez. And this can happen, again, among very young, healthy, fit people. Obviously, it's more dangerous for the elderly, the ill, the overweight, anybody who's on certain medications, but understand those wet bulb conditions and pay close attention to it. When people talk about, well, it's a dry heat, there's something to that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
For the simple reason that you can at least, your body's cooling mechanism won't be shut down completely.
What I will say about this excessive heat stuff, please, think about your servers. It's patio season, sure, but we have people all the time can we sit on the patio? It's absolutely not. It's dangerous for the server to be out there for that long. You're just sitting there, but the server and the bussers and they're all running around, they're working hard, and it's dangerous to ask them to do that outside when we're in a heat advisory like this. I'm sorry. If you're worried about sitting inside, you're worried about if you're still worried about this pandemic, if whatever your problem with it is, but you can't ask your server to put themselves in more danger. And a lot of people are asking their servers to put themselves in more danger.
There's some very strange people who like excessive heat.
Some people do, and it's sometimes
I shouldn't say they're strange.
It's not necessarily terrible when you're sitting there under an umbrella and you've got a cocktail in your hand. You're okay, but the person who is working is not okay. And I'm just the number of people who will be like, oh, well, I'm fine. It's okay, good for you. I'm not.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree.
I'm not fine.
Folks, this is a time to be considerate of other people. And thank you for that reminder.
Yeah.
That, just because the sun's out does not mean sitting on a patio is a great idea.
Right.
Particularly when it's
not when there's a heat advisory.
Not when there's a heat advisory. And if not for you, think about the people who are serving you.
Right.
What do we got there? That's because the big fish, Roger Meadows. Thank you so much. Tips $2. That's because the big fish donated to the Ohio Attorney General campaign. Yep, there you go.
There it is.
Ohio voters can run a ballot initiative to amend their Ohio Constitution directly so they can kill big money in election and force all the candidates at every level, local, state, and federal, to finance their campaign via public financing of campaigns. Also, run another ballot initiative to statalize. Yes, I made that word up. Yes, you sure did. I hope that $2 was worth it, Roger Meadows, fellow Gen Xer, which is nationalize or municipalize at all state-level nursing homes. Yeah, you're absolutely correct. Profit really, in my view, has no business in that kind of business. Human beings are far more valuable than any profit margin that could be earned. So there it is. Thank you, Roger Meadows, for that. And you're right. The Ohio Attorney General is going to go after the people who are not making the campaign contributions.
Mm-hmm. And hey, there is if there was an article that I talked about a few weeks ago that like it's not secret. You can go and look up like who's getting who's getting the money.
Funds,
You're
yeah,
like
the
you can look
donations,
that up. It's very, very easy to find out who's getting paid.
Absolutely. Also, know about food safety during power outages. I'm going to do a special for Faze coming up very soon because he loves my food safety tips. But one thing to keep in mind is that it's hot out. And heat does lead to power grid failure. You get the rolling brownouts. You have the blackouts. Do some research. The CDC, the U.S. Department of Agriculture have some really good information on food safety. As I like to tell everybody, the sniff test does not work. Things like botulism, for example, the most deadly types of pathogens don't necessarily change the way the food smells. So just saying, oh, it smells okay. No, that's not okay. You want to follow the guidelines. Typically speaking, they talk about 24 hours in a refrigerator, up to 48 hours if there's still ice crystals in the freezer. But you want to double check on that and be very, it's better to be safe than sorry. Another thing to do is this. Keep in mind that a full fridge and particularly a full freezer will stay cold longer because the food is in there to hold that chill and will keep the unit cold for longer. If your larder or your refrigerator, your freezer is bare, one of the things you can do is stuff it full of ice packs. You might be getting ice packs if you have a food delivery kits, if you have groceries delivered, a CSA box. You may have those. Keep those on hand. And then put them in the freezer to let them freeze up as you take stuff out of there, and you'll be able to hold on to the cold in there. Also, the smaller ones can make good ice packs if you get a boo-boo.
See, that's what I've been doing with my meal kit ones, because I got the free meals or whatever.
Yeah.
So it's like, I didn't even realize I was doing something extra good there.
Yeah, there you go. The other thing that you can do is if you drink bottled water, you have that empty bottle. What you do is you fill it up part way, not all the way because it will expand a little bit, seal it up tight and put it in there. And there you have essentially a free ice pack. And if there's a water issue, you've got some extra water there. That may not taste that good, so you might want to pour it through a pitcher. Just to get some of the freezer taste out of there, but it could work very well for hygiene or other purposes if it's been in there for a while. But that's a free ice pack, and it does provide you with an emergency source of water as well.
It's good to bring that kind of thing to like the beach too, because then you bring it and it melts, but now you still have water and it's not hot.
Yeah, absolutely. So there are some options right there, but do go over the food safety stuff because with the brutal heat that we're having and the brownouts and the rumors of brownouts, I think it's actually kind of important to know how to stay safe in these situations. Of course, the other disasters that come up are wildfires, tornadoes, hurricanes, storms, flood, civil unrest. As they say, sun's out, guns out. But people do get ornery. And they can get ornery. We know that there is that risk of civil unrest in this country. We've seen protests. We've been seeing mass shooter incidents, things that can happen. People get hot, and that literally can raise temperatures.
Yeah.
And temperatures and tempers.
And tempers.
Also, poor air quality. That is also a real issue. So to be aware of those, I've got some sources at the bottom that can give you some good information about prepping for all of these. So what I will say is preparation also starts locally. I mentioned that in Chicago, we will send out the buses as cooling centers in this city. A lot of people don't know about that, but that's a service that's available. That information is available on the Office of Emergency Management website here in Chicago. A lot of people don't know about that, but most municipalities, cities, and certainly counties and states have emergency management departments. It's a good idea for you to know exactly what these departments are for your area, and for you to have all the information from your state, county, and local, that means your municipality, departments so that you know who to call, the services that are offered, the processes that are available. To do this, you go to USA.gov. That is the federal government's website, search engine for all government websites. So you can go in there, put in the name of your town, and put in emergency management or disaster management. You'll find that agency's website if your town has that. Your county and your state will definitely have those. But get that information. Look at the information that they have there. Look at their services, the information they give them. Print out the pertinent information, because remember, if the power goes down, you may not be able to access those websites in an emergency. Print out the information, put it in a binder or put it in a folder, and put it with your emergency kit someplace. It's really helpful information. Also, recommendations from meteorologists as well as disaster management professionals. You need as many notification options as possible to be alerted to an emergency. One of the reasons is that they have a tendency, systems tend to fail. They often fail or they're not terribly accurate, which is why you want multiple notifications so that you can be assured of getting some notification and so that you can confirm what is actually going on. I will actually tell you a story. I've got a friend who's been living in New York City for about 30 years. He was here in Chicago 2 months ago on a business trip. Monday night, when all of the cacophony was happening in the city, he gets an alert on his phone up in New York. So it's as I said, these are not perfect systems. So that's why you want to have multiple systems available to you. Also, as I reported a few months ago, the chat room used by the National Weather Service and meteorologists, as well as disaster management coordinators, has been collapsing under itself. It's a very old chat room that's like 15 years old. They've tried to move to Slack, but the problem is Slack is being served on Amazon's servers, which also go down. So I'm just saying that communications will often collapse, or there'll be issues with communications in disasters. So having multiple sources are important. If your community has Smart 911, I got a link to it in the Civically Minded Substack, or Reverse 911. Sign up for it, so you'll get messages. Also, your area's emergency management services may have text notification services. Sign up for those. Also, get a portable power bank for your cell phone. Everybody in your household should have at least one, and keep those charged, because your phone will be an important part of important part of your preparation, your plans, and knowing what to do in a disaster. Also, it's a way for you to get help if you call for help if you need it. Get a weather alert radio. I've got a link in there to an article that I wrote a while back. Keep that weather alert radio switched to standby. As long as the transmitter is up, the weather alert radios are super fast and super accurate. So I recommend every household should have one. You can get the lowest priced ones from Midland are about $30 each. They act like smoke detectors or carbon monoxide detectors, and you will get notifications of emergencies. They work great. Get that battery-powered radio. I know I'm always yelling at y'all about this. Get that with extra batteries. Again, the radio will be the most reliable way of getting information if the cell towers go down, which happens all the time, as well as the power going down. You can also identify, there's a link in here in the show notes to the EAS primary entry point station for your area. So the emergency alert system works with radio stations and TV stations across the country, cable stations, to notify you, but they also have designated certain radio stations as primary entry points. These are stations that have been hardened against all kinds of disasters, including nuclear attack. Okay. To get information out to the public as soon as possible. So you'll want to know what that station is. In Chicago, it is WLS 8900. But you want to know for that area, just so you know what to tune into. If every other station is off the air, that station should remain on for your area. Find out what it is. Don't forget your neighbors, elderly people, people with disabilities, and people who are not connected. They don't have a cell phone. They're not online. You may need to knock on their door. So there's that. Also, continue to monitor alerts in local media even after you think a disaster has passed. First of all, things like floods will often follow tornadoes, so you need to monitor to find out what's going on. If there has been a water main break, if there has been a chemical spill, which can happen in a disaster, you need to know what to do in the case of follow-up. You may be required to evacuate. Also, right after disasters in areas, what will happen is the Red Cross or other disaster agencies, oftentimes charities, will set up something called a MARC, or a multi-agency resource center. And that's like a disaster fair. And you walk into like an armory or a school gym or something like that, and there'll be tables up from state agencies as well as charities and disaster relief organizations. And you can just go from table to table, and they will help you get what you need to get yourself together. And I've been talking to people, I've done some seminars on this, and like one lady said, people don't understand what we can do for them. She said, look, there was a lady who came up to her and said, can you get people to come to my table? She was working with some charity. She said, I have a stack of $100 Walmart gift cards that I'm giving to people as long as they can show they were in the affected area.
Right.
And nobody was coming to this lady's table. So keep that in mind. If you see something about a MARC or a multi-agency resource center, and you can call and ask, City Hall, or the information should be made available to you, go to that, because these are folks that can that specialize in dealing with people who are in your situation, and they know what to do. People don't know about this, though. So I'm letting you know.
She's letting you know.
I'm letting you know about that.
That's good. I didn't know about the MARCs.
Yeah, no, they're great services. People just don't understand how they work. Also, finally, I've told you this before, outdoor warning sirens. Not all areas have them. Some areas, they were just decommissioned after the Cold War, and they were never designed to be heard indoors. You may or may not be able to hear it indoors, so you cannot rely on outdoor warning sirens. Just letting you know that. And also, people are running around with headphones all the time.
Yep.
And earbuds, so they're not going to hear anyway. Identify your mutual aid networks in your area. These are independent, autonomous groups. Sometimes they are involved with churches or houses of worship. Sometimes these are collectives, autonomous collectives, activist groups, but they offer mutual aid. Identify them ahead of time. Again, if you live in an area that is prone to disaster, you need to seek out those mutual aid groups, find out who they are, what they are about, so you know what to do so that you can offer your help or get help if you need it. Also, and this happened to me on Monday night, have a plan when you aren't at home, because I was out and about. Mm-hmm. And this was all happening. Sirens were going off, and I was about 3 blocks from home. And I had to make some quick decisions. Okay, do I duck into this local business where they know me, or do I think I can get home? Have that plan. Are there places you can go to? Do you have friends or family in the area that you can walk to see them? Do you have some extra water, maybe a phone charger or something with you when you're out and about? Particularly if the weather's bad or something like that, just so that you can take care of yourself if you're in a bad situation. Just keep that in mind, because what you don't want is to be a couple miles from home, something's happening, and you have no plan to get to safety. Do you have alternate routes for getting home?
Yeah.
Particularly if you drive.
I was texting my roommates. I was like, are you guys good? I don't, because this is the time that they're usually traveling home. This is when I'm like, guys, and they were fine, but But
you have a routine, but your routine gets disrupted.
Yeah.
So let's say something happens on the L or on a bus, and you're off the bus. Okay, how do you get home? Or if you can't get home, you have to make a decision. Do I get to safety? Do I get to a business where they know me? Do I get to my workplace? That's a decision. And run these scenarios through your head so that you're not, at 6s and 7s when something happens. Also, just a few things about household preparedness. Secure your structure. Let's say, make repairs as needed. Let's say you've got torn window screens. Get those fixed. Because if you want to cool your house down at night in particular, you want window screens. Yeah. Otherwise, you get little visitors.
You can talk to your landlord about those things too. They're supposed to fix that kind of thing.
They are. I have a great landlord, so don't worry about it. But update your ID cards and gather other proof of identity of residence. You may need those if you have to go to a MARC, to a multi-agency resource center, so that they know that you qualify for aid. You may also need it if you have to evacuate. What can happen is that the National Guard will secure the area after the evacuation. If you need to get back, you will have to show an ID. You'll have to show proof of your identity. So get that taken care of now. Make sure that you have an ample supply of toiletries, human and pet food, as well as water. The rule is 1 gallon of water per day per pet for hygiene and drinking. But in high heat, or if you have people who are sick, elderly, or pregnant, more water may be needed. And some of your food should be ready to eat in case the power is out. And also, if you're in an area where there's a risk of having to evacuate, hurricanes, wildfires, pack go bags for the family. These are just bags full of necessary supplies that you will need so that you can get out quickly, because at that point, seconds matter. So I've got I got a bunch of links in here for you to peruse and look at. I like to do these every once in a while for folks here because people don't always think about these things unless you've had some training. And I wanted to share, particularly given all the disasters that have been happening so far in this country, and we're only in June.
Yeah, I know. It's like you're talking about summer. I'm like, I don't think it's technically summer yet.
It is technically, so people don't realize that. It is technically summer.
I thought summer started on like the 21st.
That's kind of like more like midsummer.
No, I thought summer was like the 21st. I thought that was like the solstice or whatever.
Or maybe we're getting into the, I don't know. Because I know the equinox is the mid-season. Like autumn equinox and spring equinox, because that's where it's half and half, and you're in kind of in the middle there. But I think the solstice and winter solstice again is more midwinter.
I guess I always just thought that the 21st of June or so was the start of summer, and the 21st of December is the start of winter. Like I thought. You know what? How it went.
Next week I'm going to have a definitive answer on this. Periodically I hear debates on the topic, but I'm going to figure this out. And I appreciate your pushing back because actually I need to investigate.